Welcome to our File Plan Partners Educational Insights. I'm excited today to have with me my colleague, Max Taylor. Max is Senior Vice President, Financial Planning and Wealth Consultant. And today we are going to discuss a topic in regards to real estate, rentals. Believe it or not, here at File Plan Partners, we in our comprehensive financial planning have people that have assets outside of the markets.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, and Max, thanks for joining me. I asked you to do this vlog because I've been thrilled with the insight and advice you have given clients in regards to the rental properties in their financial blueprints.
Yeah.
So first of all, you'll see on the screen there, question number one, what are some of the pros and cons for individuals investing in real estate?
Yeah, some of the pros and cons of investing in real estate. Like you said, we've got a lot of clients that they come to us that have already got rental properties they've inherited or they've bought at some point in time, or they're considering that as an investment alternative.
Right.
You know me, I love real estate. I think it plays an important part in everybody's portfolio, but in a diversified manner. It certainly can't be overweighted or anything.
Yeah.
Some of the pros and cons, long-term returns for real estate are sometimes, most of the time, uncorrelated to the stock market.
Great statement.
Absolutely. It can kind of be a diversifying and effect to a total portfolio. When the stock market's down, that real estate will keep producing income most of the time and can provide that stability. Another advantage of real estate is, you can employ leverage pretty easily. Most people getting into real estate borrow money from a bank, and that helps juice returns. Now, that can also be a con, and we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, and let me say this, their financial blueprint here helps them when they're borrowing money like
Absolutely, absolutely helps them. We can provide that information, help make that working with that financial lender a lot easier process for them. Another advantage you got with real estate is there's lots of tax advantages. The IRS and our government loves to sort of subsidize real estate investing through the tax code. So you've got depreciation, qualified business income deductions, 1031 exchanges people can do down the road. So a lot of different tax advantages that you can take advantage of. Of course, people need to consult with their tax provider, CPA.
And I need to interject here. We don't do income tax returns.
Correct.
But from the standpoint, you are a CPA.
Correct.
And you have your CFP. And also when it comes to real estate transactions, you have a background in your career on that as well.
I've done a good many transactions over my life.
Sure, but coordinating with our clients in regards to their real estate with their CPA and the tax strategies, we definitely do that.
Absolutely, and very important to make sure we look at that whole picture and make sure a client understands those tax implications before they take that big leap in buying a piece of property. Another big advantage too is just that steady stream of income.
Okay.
Now, with residential real estate, there can be ups and downs, but for the,
Yes.
over a long period of time, it can be a pretty lucrative investment and provide a steady stream of income, different from the stock market.
Yeah.
Some of the cons we find a lot.
Okay, let's talk about
cons. I think, in my mind, the cons can be more important a lot of times to talk about than the pros.
Sure.
You really got to dive into those and understand those really well. Diversification, when you're talking about buying a single property as opposed to investing in a fund, diversification can be a problem, right? You're putting down a large chunk of your capital in one property in one town, if it may be just in one development. So you really need to make sure it's got the economic, particulars are set for a long-term investment.
Sure.
So that can be a big problem. Back to like I just said, the capital. Buying a piece of property on your own, one property, requires a significant chunk of capital to put up in that one single investment. We talked about leverage a minute ago. It can be a pro and a con. While leverage can help you juice your returns, make it easier to get into real estate, when that tenant moves out or eviction notices, whatever may happen, the bank still wants their money, right?
Word has it.
They always want it. They always want their money, and they're going to get it from you.
Yeah.
So that can also be something people really need to make sure to factor in, make sure they've got the liquidity, other places to keep those debt payments going if something happened with their rental income.
Yeah, and that was a big issue in the 2008 downturn.
Oh, it's huge, absolutely. Another one is simply management headaches. Are you going to manage, if we're just talking here about residential, buying a house and renting it out, are you going to be the one that deals with those headaches when the phone rings at the middle of the night with a plumbing problem, the hot water heater blew, then middle of summer and the HVAC goes out? Are you prepared for that workload to go jump in and get that fixed? Or are you going to be turning it over to a management company to manage for you?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, turning it over to a management company takes all those stresses off of you. It also really eats into your profit too.
Very much so.
So you got to kind of factor that in. And, that's kind of the big things. And also, we talked about residential real estate. It's typically the easiest to invest in, but you've also it also sometimes has the lowest returns you'll find. And the reason for that is you're competing with buyers who are not looking at that investment, that house, as an investment.
Yeah.
They're emotionally tied to their home, so they're not necessarily looking at the price. A lot of times you're going to find that you're going to be paying a little bit more for those residential properties and getting a little bit lower return versus a more traditional commercial and type.
Yeah, and when you say also to make it worth your time, I mean, it's one thing to get one property, but now you start getting 2 and 3. There's that point where you've got to get enough properties to really make it worth your time, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to reach that critical mass for it to really be,
lucrative.
To be lucrative. And then again, going back to my mind, the diversification problem. I mean, we've got lots of clients that, their goal is to own, 15, 20 properties and have a huge amount of capital tied up. And the first thing that pops in my mind, wow, you're really putting a lot of capital in one town and one product type.
Yeah.
So what could happen?
Yeah.
So that's some of the cons to look at. And then, one more con too is, just to kind of always keep in mind, and we'll address this again later, if you're buying into a condo complex or townhome complex that's got an HOA, you really need to dive into that HOA and make sure they're financially sound.
Right.
They got the capital reserves.
We know of situations where they didn't and the loan didn't go through or those kind of things.
Yeah, and then you may end up with big assessments if something happens that you haven't prepared for.
Yeah, no, those are all great ones. Well, let's address question number 2 then, in terms of what are some of the analytical steps you take when you're initially analyzing a property to potentially purchase as an investment. Just because you look at it and everything looks okay, there's more details to that.
No, absolutely. And I kind of start from the high level, that 30,000 foot view, and work my way down if I'm looking at something. If I find a property that I want to dive into, I do real just sort of back of the envelope, as you'd call it, calculations.
Yeah.
What do I think the rent can be and what is the purchase price?
I always enjoy seeing you do that.
Yeah, just what's that initial yield? And then after that point, well, it looks attractive. Then I'm going to start diving in. Where is it located? Is it in a stable part of the city? Is that market increasing, stable, or declining? What does the employment look like in that area? What are the big employment drivers? Is there a hospital nearby that people are working for? Who's going to be my tenant? Where's my tenant going to work?
Yeah.
School districts are important. Is my tenant going to have children? And that's that school district that property is located in. How is that going to drive it? After doing that kind of high level, then I'm really going to start diving in more into the weeds of, how old is this property? What are I'm going to start trying to find rental comps in the area.
Okay.
So other, competing properties.
Seeing how well they're doing.
Well, how well they're doing, what kind of rents they're getting, or rents increasing. What's the vacancy rate in the market? Does that overall market have a high vacancy rate where there's lots of empty units sitting there trying to be rented out?
Yeah.
It takes a little work, but you can get that information. And from there, then I'm going to start looking into the expense piece. What are the taxes? Go get an actual insurance quote. What's my insurance going to be?
Excellent point.
How old are the HVAC systems and the hot water heaters and all those types of things? Really diving into, coming up with a true. And I'm going to model all those things out I always model mine out over a 10-year time period.
Okay.
And look at, what do I think rent can increase? How are my expenses going to increase? What's my cash flow going to look like? What's this property potentially going to be worth in 10 years? And I calculate like I would any other investment.
Yeah.
What's my overall average return going to be over that kind of 10-year hold period?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I take that.
Well, and I appreciate you going over all that, because I'm always amazed. We'll be in a meeting and we've got someone that you've done a financial blueprint for, and you'll ask the question, so why did you buy that property? Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, they haven't used the same analysis and the detail, only to realize, wow, I hadn't thought about some of these things. As you point out, well, you may have to use some of this money to do repairs on this house.
That's right.
If you checked out the HVAC and some of these other things, and also, why would anybody want to move in that area just because you think it's a nice area? Is it appealing? to people.
Yeah, and that really rolls into the last question of what are some of those big items people miss, and you just definitely mentioned some of those.
Yeah.
A lot of people go in and they don't really think on a long term enough to, consider when is this house going to need a new roof, when is it going to need a new HVAC, a hot water heater, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Another big thing, putting those capital dollars away.
Sure.
You really need to kind of think about how much those expenses are going to be down the road and amortize them into your operating expense budget. So you're putting whatever that may be, $100, $200 a month away, so that it's available down the road when that roof needs to be replaced or that HVAC goes out in the middle of summer. So you've got that money ready to go to put into it.
Yeah.
And another big thing that I find people kind of ignore in their analysis is vacancy factor.
Okay, talk about that.
So, most people say, I'm going to keep it rented all the time. I'll have some money in there. Well, that's not really accurate, is it? Now, especially,
it's not realistic.
It's not realistic. In a residential property, you're lucky if you can keep somebody 2 years. Most people renting.
That's interesting.
Most people renting, it's, they're moving every year or two at the best. So if you kind of think about vacancy factor, I always use at least a 5% vacancy factor in my modeling. And I do that simply because, if a property turns over, tenant moves out, I got to have a week or two to, clean the carpets, do a deep cleaning, find a new tenant, show it, get it leased back out. And if you think about that on a year basis, if a property is empty for just 2 weeks, that's a 4% vacancy that you've got to factor in.
That's an excellent
So you really got to think about that long term and kind of factor that into your total analysis.
Yeah. Yeah, well, those are details that we go over with our clients when doing a financial blueprint, or we also help them kind of leapfrog if they're interested in doing real estate and rental properties because of the knowledge that you have and the insight and how that works in relation to the rest of their assets. The other point I will make here, which I really appreciate, and our clients have told me that they really appreciate, is that we're not all about you just got to have money in the markets.
No, absolutely not.
There are multiple ways to increase your net worth. The key is that you're making prudent decisions.
That's right, absolutely.
And buying real estate, you need to know all these details, just like in doing the analysis on a stock or a mutual fund, other investments that are out there. You need to understand that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts today with our viewership, and we hope that if you have an interest in real estate or already own properties, don't hesitate to give Max a call or call me so we can discuss it in more detail. In addition to that, if we've raised some questions for you and you need additional answers to, please don't hesitate to contact us. And also, from the standpoint, if you've got real estate in your family or you're thinking about going in with somebody, we know situations like that. I know one time we had a gentleman that he still ran all his rental properties and he passed away and the wife and kids had no idea what to do with it.
Yeah.
And we helped them form an LLC, worked with a corporate attorney and in a management company, and they were able to keep those rental properties.
Yep.
So there's all of these what ifs that we talk about, not only about where you are today, but going forward as life evolves. We hope you have a great week. Please forward this to someone that you know has an interest in real estate or has voiced to you they have concerns about their real estate properties, and hopefully they too can benefit from your relationship with us here at File Plan Partners. We hope you have a great week, and we'll be in touch. Thanks.